Well, the annual National Child Protection Week kicks off this Sunday. The campaign that began back in 1997 aims to mobilise all sectors of society to ensure the care and protection of our children. Government has adopted a zero-tolerance approach toward child abuse and calls on all South Africans and sectors to partner with the government in creating a safer and healthier environment for our children. For more, we have in studio, that's Lumka Oliphant, the Chief Director of Communications in the Department of Social Development. Good afternoon, Lumka. Always a pleasure to have you on the PM News Desk.
Good afternoon to you and also to your viewers.
Lumka, some very brutal crimes happening in very busy communities, literally under our noses. What's the core message or the core focus of your campaign this year?
The focus of the campaign this year is continuing from what we had done last year, because it was a 5-year strategy. So our theme this year is still working together to protect our children. But as well, we have found that in our research, trying to find out what if the campaign is working of Child Protection Week, we find that the focus has changed. Fathers are wanting to be involved in their children's lives, and they want government to assist them in making sure that they take part in their children's lives. They are not denied access, and there's an ambiguity in terms of messages that we bring out. So this year we also want to add on to that to say that it is a dual responsibility. Whether the father, you are still with him or not with him, it does not take away the responsibility that you have to give him access, and in turn that the child can be looked after by both parents, even if the child his primary residence is with the mother.
Yes, the reality is that child sexual abuse and child homicide levels are very alarming in the country right now as a whole. 3 children are murdered in South Africa every day, but most of the sexual crimes, Lumka, still remain unreported, meaning that the official figures greatly underestimate perhaps the reality of the situation. How do we begin to increase vigilance in our neighborhoods? And do you feel your campaigns are having that desired impact, that momentum on the ground as it is?
We think we are having the momentum for the fact that people are also telling us where else to strengthen the campaign. But with issues of sexual abuse, we've also found that children are abused by partners of their mothers, and they go unreported because the mother is dependent on the partner. So we're trying to say, you can't compromise your children. When there is an issue, especially sexual abuse, it must be reported regardless of whether you are dependent on that person or not for financial means.
All right. Government has adopted a zero-tolerance approach to crimes of such nature, and the courts are indeed playing their part, Lumka. In the past week, we've seen harsh sentences handed down to perpetrators. We saw the Mpangeni serial rapist. He's been sentenced to 6 life terms by the High Court in KwaZulu-Natal. His youngest victim was a 12-year-old girl, and then a 30-year-old man just this week was given a double life sentence for the rape and murder of a 5-year-old family friend. How much of a deterrent does this will this serve to the accused and like-minded people?
I'm sure it goes a long way, but we still need to make sure that in communities, because our children are raped in communities, our children are raped by people they know, people they trust. So it means that then we still try make sure that the prevention, we are stronger on the prevention than on the end result.
All right, we know that poverty does not necessarily equate to violence, but it is true that our poorer communities are more susceptible to this kind of violence, where there's a lack of access to social services, health facilities, high unemployment perhaps. Talk to us about this link between poverty, a lack of social services, unemployment and abuse.
Yes, we've also, if you remember, we have an IMC on gender-based violence. Some of the things that came out was that people who are in poor communities are susceptible to it, and also that the reasons for people to do what they are doing, which is why then you will see there's a coordination on government to make sure that we work together with all other departments, which is why you will see that even in social development, we have our gender-based violence command center, which links everybody, so that if there is a case reported, we are able to send it to the different departments. Yes. So it is a problem, but and government is trying to make sure that that we bring those services. For instance, social development is just the social development, where people cannot reach our services. We go out. You will hear that our minister is one of the ministers who's always outside in communities, because we have realized that the work is not in the office. The work is outside in communities.
Yes, and it's also important to note that child sexual abuse occurs across the board in South Africa, regardless of economic status, race, background, etc. In your experience, Lumka, how challenging is the lack of coordination between three critical units? I'm talking about the SAPS, social services, and pathology, for that matter.
I've just said to you that the Department of Social Development has just opened a command center where we have a 24-hour service. If a woman or a child wants to talk to a social worker, wants to report, and that command center is linked to the different departments. For instance, if it comes from us as urgent, it gets priority at 10-111. So as well, when we speak to each other, the cluster departments, in the clusters we champion our different responsibilities, so that we make sure that we try, and as government, to work together in making sure that the cases don't go unreported.
Thank you, Lumka, for your time on the PM News Desk. That was Lumka Oliphant, the Chief Director of Communications in the Department of Social Development. Well, it's time to take a short